Today is Bhante Bhadia's last day before he goes for 3 months to Sri Lanka. So I should let you do the talk, right? He did the talk on Wednesday night, and it was lovely, of course, so we'll miss him. And I'll miss him especially, I think, because we do so many things together. We do the chanting together and the sutta study together, and he's a wonderful son, and he's going to be able to see his mom for 3 months after 3 years. Yeah, so I'm really happy for him. So that's sympathetic joy. Mutual joy. That's feeling joy. You can feel joy when others experience joy. You feel their joy. Instead of feeling sad, I'm feeling mutual joy. So that's a little bit sad, but that's just temporary. I wanted to talk today more about the brahmaviharas, or those sublime states of abiding in certain developed emotional qualities that are taught as being the highest qualities that we can learn and develop within ourselves. And when we do, we're really dwelling. The expression is sometimes used, dwelling in the homes of the gods, because they're the highest emotional states. So I've been interested in them for a while, just on my personal search for ways to work with negative emotions. And then we had Bhante Samahita, who lives in Sri Lanka but is Danish, was here a few months ago. And the topic he talked about here was about those same states. So I thought that was very special for my own practice, and I'm finding them coming up in different ways and learning, kind of widening my own ways to work with developing these qualities and how we can work with them. So we can use them in our meditation, and we can use them loving kindness is the first one that we talk about, metta. So it's the first of the 4. And the way we practice it in our meditation, we always begin with loving kindness. We can practice all 4 of the brahmaviharas the same way. We develop the quality within ourselves. So we always start with ourselves, and we feel it for ourselves, and then we extend it out. And so and the way we do that with metta is we develop that friendship, that kindness towards ourselves, unconditional. And then we understand how that feels, and we can see the value in just sending it out to others. And what that does for us whenever we practice that way, it's really purifying our own minds. It's letting us just drop the unkind feelings we have towards ourselves and our conditions that we limit ourselves with, and it allows us to purify ourselves that way. And then everything that comes out of us becomes more pure and more wholesome and more skillful. And so with the brahmaviharas, we work the same way. So the first one is metta, loving kindness. And if you practice the meditation that we do here, you know how to do it. You know how to send it out. When we radiate it out from ourselves, we aren't trying to fix anybody else. That's not the purpose of it. It's just making us, it's transforming us. So we become that quality. And so it naturally radiates out from us. And Bhante Samahita talked about how important it is that we allow it to extend out to infinity. We don't stop it anywhere. We can't. And you'll find, like, once you begin practicing loving kindness, it gets harder and harder to stop it. Say, you get to that difficult person, and you can't say, well, I'm sending loving kindness to everybody but that difficult person. And that's the magic of it, right? Because you eventually see that you can't stop it. That if you're really transforming yourself, if you're really purifying your own mind, that it begins to be, it just is how you are. You can't think of not sending it to all, you end up, of course, sending it to all living beings, all living things. And it just becomes your natural way to work with these profound their spiritual qualities, their emotional qualities, their qualities that we can develop in any spiritual tradition, I think. And we can develop them in the secular world. So it's the development of that quality for ourselves and then sending it out. We can't keep it. We stifle it, right? We're not transforming our own minds if we just keep it for ourselves. The second quality is compassion or karuna. And so we often include that with loving kindness, so we're all familiar with working with that. But where we are feeling that tug of our heart that we feel, when we really feel compassion, we're feeling another person's suffering or pain. We feel it like a tug on our heart. Sometimes we can only witness it, and sometimes we can, if our minds are really clear, we can find a way to help alleviate that suffering. But we want to do it in the best possible way. But we experience it with that person. So that's the third one. We develop it towards ourselves. We develop compassion for our own suffering, for our own troubled heart. And once we do that, we're able to extend it out to others. The third one is mutual joy or sympathetic joy. And that's I know these, but I'm not. That's mudita. Yeah. One of the teachers is Bhante Mudita. So mudita is that mutual joy, that joy for others, and never feeling that if we have joy for others that we don't have joy for ourselves. And that's why that one's very important. We experience it for ourselves first. We learn that there's joy in our lives, and we begin to practice whenever we can experience joy to really see it and feel it and hold it close. And then we can offer it to others because we're not losing out on anything. We recognize joy, and then we wish it for others, and we can find joy in their joy. That's the beauty of it. And then the fourth one is upekkha, and that's equanimity, which is sometimes we think of it as balance. I heard a good definition for it recently, and it was imperturbability. If you wrap my mouth can barely say it. So we know if we're perturbed, right? We're disturbed. We're bothered by things. So if we're imperturbable, things don't shake us up. We're able to find that balance right away. It doesn't mean that bad things don't happen and that there isn't suffering, that we don't feel compassion, but it means that we know how to get into balance very quickly. Because if we're perturbed all the time, we're not doing any good for anyone. So we're not fixing anything. We're not helping anyone. We're just agitated. And so equanimity is that ability to find that middle path. And it's also being in the moment. So right now, what can we do? In any situation, all that we can do right at the moment is to be balanced, is to be at peace. So in the worst situation, who do you look for in your own life? When you're the most perturbed, who do you look for? You look for the person who's the most balanced and the most that you can feel their peace. And that's the person you want to go to. That's the person you want to help you in that situation. And so when we work with equanimity, we're learning how to become that person. And then we're also then wanting it and sending out that quality to others. So that's one way we can work with those qualities, is to just practice them the same way we do metta. We develop it within ourselves, we feel it for ourselves, and then we gradually are sending it out to others. We never go and check up with them and see if they got it, if they learned it, because that's not the purpose. It's us getting it, and then it will happen. And then that's the quality that you abide in. You're abiding in those four. When you get to where you've mastered and have attained those four qualities, that's the entire path. And then you just can live in that. So it's not like we can do it overnight. But I found that when I can practice with those four qualities, it does help with a lot of negative emotions. It helps with seeing monks leave or even go on very long trips. That those things are disturbing emotions for me too, because I get attached. I confess. So in thinking about this topic, I had something else came up to me. Is Carol Crome here? Yeah. Okay. So she went to India. And I want her to talk one day and share some things from that trip with the whole group. But she was telling me about it, and it sounded like that's one of my dreams, is to go to India someday before I'm too old to go. So I told her I had 2 books because I love to read people's stories about their pilgrimages to India. So I have one, it's called A Pilgrims Companion. And I was talking to Bhante Bhatia this morning, and I said, I think the people who wrote this book were connected. They're Japanese American, I think, but they live in Sri Lanka and lived there a long time. I'm not sure if they do now. But their book, they have taken the Jataka tales, the stories, the fables that the Buddha talks about. They've taken those and illustrated them, and they have big, beautiful books, which I read in Sri Lanka. Where I was staying at the temple had some of their books. But I said, I think they're connected to your temple some way, and I don't remember. And he remembered that they taught English to the monks there when they were living in Sri Lanka. Did they ever teach you? So I don't know them personally, but I love this book. And I had another book that was written by a woman named Shwarna, who's a Sri Lankan woman who lives in Chicago. And some of you who have been at the temple a long time probably remember her. And she wrote a book that was about her pilgrimage, and she's been to India several times. And one of those trips, she wrote a book about her pilgrimage. And it's very different. It tells about, the difficulties and the good things, but every place they visit, she talks about, she's a scholar, so she has a really deep knowledge of the teachings of the Buddha, and she could talk to her group. Some were relatives and some were other people that she knew, either from Sri Lanka, family members or friends from other parts of the world. And they had a guide, but she could tell them the suttas that the Buddha taught at particular places, and she brought a lot to the trip, so she wrote a book about it. And I love that book. So I loaned them to Carol just before her trip. I just said, you don't even have to take these, because I knew she probably didn't want more stuff to have to take along with her. But I said, they're wonderful and they're about pilgrimages. So when she returned them to me, because it was just last week, wasn't it? It was so precious. I mean, if she'd lost them, I'd have been fine with it. But she returned them, and I felt like my books have been to India. So it gave me a lot of confidence that if the books have been, that I'm going to get there. And they just felt more special to me and I kind of hoped there'd be maybe some stains on them or the pages would be bent. But they're in perfectly good shape. But it was really special that she had occasions to use them, and they were really helpful on her tour. But she can talk to you more about that. But I was looking through them when I took this one with me when I was in Florida. But I found there was one of their reflections from their own pilgrimage. This is Ken and Wisaka Kawasaki are the two people who are both writers and illustrators. But they have one on the divine abidings. And they talk about metta. And I wanted to just read some from these because they have two different selections, and they're writing about them with different words than I necessarily would always use. And so if you hear them talked about differently, I think it helps even expand the meaning of them. So it's day 9 on their trip. It's their reflection. Metta, may I be free from sorrow and always be happy. May those who desire my welfare, those who are indifferent towards me, and those who hate me also be happy. May all beings who live in this vicinity and those who live in other kingdoms in this world system be happy. May all beings living in every world system and each element of life within such a system be happy and achieve the highest bliss. Likewise, women, men, the noble and ignoble ones, devas, which are those little gods, humans, those in woeful states and those living in the 10 directions, may all those beings be happy. And for compassion or karuna, may all those who are in pain, in trouble, facing hardship and suffering find relief. May their troubles be over. May they find happiness. Mudita is that mutual joy. May all those who are well, successful, healthy, and prosperous maintain themselves happily. And upekkha is equanimity. All beings are the owners of their karma, heirs of their karma, born of their karma, related to their karma, and abide supported by their karma. Karma means action. Whatever karma they do, for good or for evil, to that they will be the heir. So that's a really different way of talking about equanimity, because karma, those are the actions that we perform and our thoughts. And so in our Buddhist teachings, we're taught that everything is about cause and effect. So everything that we've done or said is eventually will be balanced out. And we don't know when it's going to be balanced. We have no idea. So it's a good reason to kind of watch what we say and what we think and what we do. But it's just, it helps us be in that balanced state, because if we're going through something difficult, chances are it's part of that cause and effect. Some things are not, but we know that everything finds, our lives are finding that natural balance. And part of it is, if things are bad now, maybe there was another time when things were very good, or there were times when there was something that we did or actions that we took that we have no even idea of that are being balanced out. So it's good to remember that when we feel like we're in that very perturbable, restless state, to think about that. And there was another one, and this is from the Majjhima Nikaya, the Middle Length Discourses of the Buddha. And this is advice he gave to his son Rahula. Develop the meditation on loving kindness, for by so doing, hatred will be got rid of. Develop the meditation on compassion, for by so doing, cruelty will be got rid of. Develop the meditation on sympathetic joy, for by so doing, discontent will be got rid of. Develop the meditation on equanimity, for so by doing, all aversion will be got rid of. Develop the meditation on the impure, for by so doing, attachment will be got rid of. Develop the meditation on the perception of impermanence, for by so doing, the conceit, I am, will be got rid of. So I love those. So they're talking more about developing those meditations. We get rid of the opposite qualities of them, and added the ones on developing the meditation on the impure. That's how we rid our attachment. So the classical one is meditating on a dead body. We don't do that a lot in this culture. I remember when I was in Sri Lanka, every temple that I went to in the monastery where I was had a human skeleton hanging in a glass case. And at first I thought, I was kind of not sure about this. And then I thought, oh, well, I'm sure then maybe they have a class where they're learning anatomy and they need to have, they're tested on all the bones in the body. And then I realized that those are there so you can meditate on impermanence. So they don't have like rotting corpses in the temples, but but in the Buddha's day they could do that. They could go sit in the charnel grounds, and they could there were a lot of rotting bodies laying around, I guess. And they could go and actually sit, and their meditation would be, okay, here's someone, maybe a relative. And someday that's your relative, and that's you in the future, and that's all life. And so, and that's meditating on the impure. So we see that those stages of decomposition. And when you meditate on the skeleton in the temples, you're basically, this is me in the future. This is everyone I love in the future. This is everyone I've known in the past who's gone now. This is them. And you just, it's not morbid. It's really practicing impermanence. It's practicing, this is what impermanence means. And this is why when you meditate on that, it says attachment is got rid of. So that's attachment to our own bodies. It's attachment. But I think it's also, for me, it's also letting go of things that aren't very important. Because what's important are our friendships, or the things that we do in the moment, and the things that we know are impermanent, but that we love, to just be in the moment with those things, then let them go. If you're eating a delicious piece of chocolate, it's eat that piece of chocolate you have and then enjoy it, but then be done with it. Like, don't keep thinking about when do I get the next piece of chocolate. And we should do that with the people we love, right? Here's this person I love. Here's this good friend. Here's this monk that I feel attached to, and I spend time with him when I'm with him, and when he's not here, that's okay too. And having if I meditate on that mutual joy, I'm just happy thinking of how happy he is being with his mom and being back in Sri Lanka. So the meditation on the perception of impermanence is also just thinking about the impermanence of everything in our lives, and it helps us let go of our egos, of that thing that we have identified as I. It helps us let go of that, that we are our viewpoints, we are our thoughts, we are our fashion look, we are our jobs, we are our, we are our identity in the community. we let go of that because all those things are impermanent. And the more we do, the more liberated we become, the freer we become. And you can see it even with our political ideologies, like the harder we cling to what we want the world to be like, the harder the world is for us. Because if we just cling to those ideas, that's not changing anything, again, but it can make us very unhappy with the way the world is. We can't find joy. We can't find acceptance. And we can't find loving kindness. We can't find mutual joy. So we need to loosen our grip on everything. And I think our whole path is like going from this clenched fist of holding on to who I am and what's important and what I stand for, and keeping everything shipshape and, never, everything's going to stay just like it is. Our whole spiritual journey is just learning to let go and to hold it very loosely. And that it's important if we start with ourselves, holding ourselves loosely, that we can allow other people to, be who they are. But these are meditations. These are qualities that we can just be with. Even if you say you're able to spend 10 minutes a day, you can spend that 10 minutes just before you begin your meditation. Think about that quality. And that quality, the same way if you've taken the brahmaviharas, the bodhisattva vows, the 10 perfections, you can work with those qualities just by setting your intention to be an awareness of that quality in your life, maybe for the day. Or that quality might be something that you want to study about, and you might want to read something about it, or you might have a quote or something that embodies that quality for you, and that can just be sitting on wherever you sit, just as a reminder. But the 4 brahmaviharas and these other qualities like impermanence, those are things that you can just set as your intention and let your meditation just have that as your, you might start to see thoughts that just kind of come up, and you don't want to hang on to them and start thinking, but things will kind of rise up in your mind. So as you sit quietly, if you're working with, say, aversion in yourself, then you can, sometimes the right thoughts will just kind of plop down, and you can just be with them, investigate them, look at them without getting into a mental discourse about it. You have to look at it a different way. There might be a feeling quality with it, or there might be, if that something just drops down for you to look at, it might just be an emotional quality or a feeling quality, or you can just look at it without engaging in more thoughts about it. But you might have some insight into it. But you don't have to have, you can work with it also the way I was saying, the way we do with loving kindness. So you're more creating some words to go with it, the way we do in a guided meditation. But use your quiet time with yourself to develop those qualities, and they'll only do good things for you. So they won't do any harm. So they're harmless, and they're wholesome, and they're skillful. And just don't try to become enlightened in a year, because we'd miss you. The rest of us are going to take a lot longer. But there's certainly qualities that we can move closer to all the time, and it will make your life be happier and more peaceful. And this world also needs people like that. So you will be, whether you like it or not, you'll become more of a beacon, because that you have that peace and you have those qualities in you. More and more, that's what we're all looking for. So that's why we want to have noble friends and surround ourselves with noble friends, because they help us make it through this world. So thank you, everybody.